on this channel in the past, I've been quite critical of the sustainability of certain bike brands just shipping like landfill componentry out with their bike. You know, when you buy a new bike and you get that random heavy crankset which doesn't have any sort of branding on it, and you take it out, it just weighs a ton. It's just one big solid lump of aluminium, and you get those really cheap, nasty wheels attached to quite a premium bike, and they're so heavy they either wear out really quickly or break, or you're just going to upgrade them. And every cyclist I know has like a little collection of stems and seat posts and handlebars and that sort of thing, and things that have just sort of evolved and become obsolete technology in terms of standards and things. And what do we do with all this? And I've always wanted to have like a list where we go, I want this handlebar in this size, I want that stem, just to try and stop this level of like disposable bike components, because a lot of these bike components, they're not really worth anything. You can put like a 40 quid stem on eBay, but then you just add in more shipping, and trying to ship a handlebar is just, you just put it in the bin. So it got me thinking, and then the sort of the story behind this podcast, if you like, was we were in Ambleside, and if you don't know the UK, Ambleside is like a mountain town, and like any mountain town, it's absolutely inundated with outdoor equipment stock shops, and nearly all the big brands in the outdoor space, like Patagonia, Haglos, Fjällräven, North Face, etc. They all had some sort of environmental narrative, either on their marketing inside the shops or on the labelling that they were supplied as well. So things like 1% for the planet, blue sign fabrics, recycled fabrics, a repair program. And I was quite inspired by it. I was thinking this is actually the first time I've really paid attention to it for a few years, and interesting to see how many brands are really trying to communicate their sort of sustainable efforts. And it got me thinking, I haven't really looked at this in the cycling industry for a while. And so I started looking, and I thought, well, actually, this is quite interesting. I'm just going to share it with you guys. And one, see if it is interesting or not. Two, does anyone actually care? Does it actually bother you in the slightest or not? Or do you just like, well, I'm not driving a car, it's fine. And yeah, I don't know, let's just get stuck in, and I'll sort of show you what I found, and maybe you guys can link me to some other more interesting stuff, and let's just see where it goes. So let's get started. I started off with Trek, and this is their page about sustainability, and on here you can download this report. Oh, this is quite cool. And it is actually, it's quite a cool report. So here it is, and I won't go through all of it, just like some of the key bits. So this is, breaks down where their CO2 emissions are coming from, like race team activities, transportation and distribution, which is pretty big. But then, the emissions related to the production of all of the bikes. They picked out like 4 models they wanted to go into detail, which I'll show you in a second. And this is everything else, which is like, oh my God, mind blowing. So let me just flick into these. Now, they tried to break it down, but this chart is pretty hard to understand. It goes into every little minute thing. Let's just go and look at this chart, which looks pretty cool. So this is the Marlin, their best-selling bike, and you can see why. It's entry-level mountain bike, gets you started. It's great for sort of getting to school and back, a little bit of commuting. It's one of those bikes that you can pretty much use for everything. And 116 kilograms carbon CO2 equivalency. And the frame assembly is like 17%, the rear wheel 10%, fork assembly 15%. Okay, yeah, that all makes sense. That's all good. Sort of flicking through, the Madone was on there, their top of the range road bike. And this is quite staggering, like 197. A lot of that comes from the frame and the rear wheel, like all that carbon fiber. And then it says here in the blurb, when it comes to carbon road bikes, the most significant source of emissions transfers from parts to the frame due to the requirements of the carbon fibers processing. And there is an awful lot of carbon fiber on the Madone like that. The Fuel EX is nothing too exciting there. And then they've got an e-bike as well, which is the Rail. Now, this is probably one of the most sort of consumption sort of related bikes, if you like. So it's got a lithium-ion battery, electric motor, it's got suspension, all those oils and all that sort of stuff. And 229 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalencies. And like, what does that actually mean? So I was like, well, how do I put that into context? There must be a calculator, and of course there is. So this is the Environmental Protection Agency from the United States, and you can take that 229, plug it into here, and it gives you quite a cool equivalencies. What's it actually, equivalent to? This is the headline one: 568 miles driven by an average gasoline-powered passenger vehicle. Like that. That's not a lot. I know. I used to do that in a week. I don't anymore. That was easily a week's worth of just getting to and from work. That's insane an amount. And I sort of questioned it for a bit, so I sort of went back to Trek's information, and they've actually got something that they call the rule of 430. Here it is. If you cycle about 430 miles that you would otherwise have driven, you've saved the carbon equivalent of what it took to make your bike. That's quite staggering, actually, and quite inspiring. And maybe it made me think that all my sort of whining about bits of random aluminium stuff, that probably really, really not a big deal in the great scheme of things. Frustrating, annoying, wasteful, yes, but have we got bigger problems? Yeah. Now, interestingly, they've got some cool stuff in here about how they're recycling and packaging and stuff as well. And I urge you to have a look at it. And if you've ever been to the back of a bike shop, you'll know what I mean. The back of a bike shop is just covered in like boxes and packaging, and it's an absolute nightmare. Let me show you. They've got massive, so much packaging. And if you work in a bike shop, you'll know exactly what I mean. It's just cardboard and zip ties and elastic bands. It's just an absolute mountain of waste that comes along with a bike, and they're quite hard to ship, so it's good that they're trying to work on that. And the rest of this document is all worth a good read. This is quite interesting as well, about how they're taking some carbon, and you can't really recycle carbon, but they're sort of grinding it down and then putting it into plastics to reinforce them. It's a bit like how you'd use glass fiber, I guess. All good stuff. So I thought, brilliant! I stumbled on some really good stuff here. This is Trek. My first shot. Brilliant! There's some really interesting stuff. They're trying to make a difference. This was in 2021. They've got some highlights. What it is that they're trying to achieve. So I went looking at other brands and went to Specialized. Here we go. This is Specialized. Nowhere near the amount of information, but they do talk quite at length here about e-bike recycling. And I'm going to flip back to me, because I think I've talked about this in videos before, but e-bike this is becoming a massive problem, because e-bikes have just got to that age now where an awful lot of the batteries are coming towards the end of their life. You know what it's like if you've got an iPhone or whatever, and when you first get it, it's all punchy and fast, and as you slows down, what a phone that used to get you through a couple of days worth of use now getting you through like half a day before you've got to keep recharging it. And that is the conversation that we're having with customers. And then after we've encroached that it costs this extortionate amount of money to buy a new battery, we're then into the whole well, what do the old one? I'm like, oh well, I don't want it. It's yours. And of course, some of the brands have got proper disposable things. So if you brought a Bosch, for instance, we can get a box from Bosch and send it back with their proper supplier with all the right safety stickers on it and all that sort of stuff. Fazua, etc., are the same, but generally speaking, we're sort of stuck with a problem, And if you brought like one of the sort of the Chinesey type brands, then I don't want it. It's yours to dispose of. You're going to have to go and speak to the local council and get something done with that, because they are difficult to dispose of. So it's good that Specialized are doing something with this. And they've got the recycled fabrics for their clothing line, obviously, and they've got the carbon fiber sort of recycling. And I've sort of flicked through into this. There's not an awful lot of information in there. Now, I thought, brilliant, well, we're doing something here. This is Giant. Giant's page doesn't really tell you anything. If it's ever about the term greenwashing, this is probably it. It's just words, as far as I can tell. I've listened to this guy here talk about it, and again, there's nothing in there that was like, oh, right, that's interesting. It just seems just words, sort of. Yeah, interesting. Have a look for yourself and see if you can dig into anything more, but there's nothing there that was interesting. And then I obviously went to Cannondale and couldn't see anything. Absolutely not a whisper. And if I'm wrong, please link me to the right things, because I can't find anything in here about their environmental policy at all. So yeah, there we go. I'm quite interested to know, people that watch these videos, is this something that one you've either ever considered before, ever worried about? Would it influence whether you were going to buy one brand over another? I don't know. I feel like if brands started to talk about it and tell me that they were making a positive impact and that they were trying to do something, I think I might feel a little bit more strongly towards them rather than sort of doing nothing. But it does seem like the cycling industry, as always, is quite a bit behind in all of this sort of stuff, and it's a bit disappointing, if I'm honest. As always, please get down in the comments, add your thoughts, and please, if you know anything more, like other links, like stuff that I've not discovered yet, like please put them down. I'll be really, really keen to sort of get a bit more into this and learn a bit more about it. So I'm looking for you guys to take me down a rabbit hole of research. All right, that's all I've got to say this week. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.